The victims of the contaminated blood scandal are continuing to give evidence today in the first full public inquiry. More than 2,000 people, mostly haemophiliacs, are thought to have died after being infected with HIV and hepatitis C through blood treatments in the 70s and 80s. The treatment came in the form of a clotting agent made from donated blood, some of which came from foreign donors who'd been paid, including from prisoners. It's taken more than 30 years to get to the stage of a full inquiry, which is trying to find out just how much the UK government knew. Michelle Tolley from Sparham near Dereham was given hepatitis C when she received blood transfusions after giving birth. She's due to give evidence at the inquiry next week.
It's important that the public know that we have been given a death sentence and we didn't never commit any crimes. And I have a death cloud, it hangs over my head every single morning I wake up and I think I'm still here.
We'll hear more from Michelle later. First, let's talk to Tony Farrugia. He's been at the hearing all this week. He's on the line now to speak to us. Tony, thank you. What's the atmosphere been like at the inquiry this week?
Well, it really is a mixed bag. It's very emotional, extremely sad. We're hearing stories that are just mirroring everybody else's stories. It all seems to be the same theme.
Just explain to me the huge impact these blood treatments have had on your family.
Well, my family suffer from the genetic condition haemophilia, and they are the mild version of that. There's a few different levels. So you've got mild, moderate, and severe. So my family are on the scale of mild. During the 70s, into the latter part of the 70s, my father had always been treated with cryoprecipitate, which was a product that was taken from one donor. So it was fairly safe. Any risks of viral transmission was much, much, much lower. And they just switched to an American product. I know from reading my father's notes, there was no consultation, there was no warnings. He developed hepatitis C in 1977. We also believe that was around about the time he was infected with non-A, non-B, which is now known as hepatitis C. And around about the latter part of 1981, he was infected with HIV. His health really took a downward spiral around about the summer of 84. He was diagnosed with non-A, non-B. It seems to be from what we've read in his notes that they were aware of HIV earlier, but he wasn't told until 1985. He was then, I think, around about April 86, he was sectioned under the Mental Health Act. His children didn't see him again, and I'd been removed from the family home and eventually was placed into a children's home. And then my twin brother, was removed from the home a couple of days after he died. So, yeah, it's been awful. The whole family has been devastated, and with the haemophilia being genetic, it spread across the family, as in he wasn't the only one infected. Two uncles and
both infected by contaminated blood.
Well, it was four family members in the end.
Just give me a sense of your anger at this, because here we are with four family members and your father infected, and as you've just outlined to us, the fallout from that. Listening to what the government knew or what the health service knew at the time and what they did and didn't pass on must be harrowing for you.
It's been appalling this week. It's been very emotional, and that's anger as well in there. It's just raw anger that this was allowed to happen and that it wasn't stopped. Can
I ask, are you confident that action will be taken off the back of this inquiry? And indeed, what would satisfy is the wrong word, but what would appease the fury that you feel?
We've had several we've had an independent inquiry, and we've had a public inquiry in Scotland, and all the victims and the families felt that it was a whitewash. So we've hoped from this, and we do have confidence in Sir Brian Langstaff and the inquiry team that are heading this inquiry. But we'd hope that we would get justice from this, that we would get the truth, and that the victims, the people infected, and their families would be recompensed for their loss.
Is it too late in some cases? Well, of course it's too late. Sorry, forgive me. It really is too late for many families because sadly people have passed away, including in your family. But do you feel in some ways it is really too late to come to any kind of suitable compensation package because so many people have passed away? Or would you say actually the next generation down also deserve some kind of compensation for their suffering, even if the individual who was infected and with this contaminating blood has passed away?
Yes, I do believe that the families that have been left behind should be compensated. The majority of these haemophiliacs, obviously mostly being men, they were the breadwinners. They were the ones that kept the family, and all of a sudden to lose them. I mean, certainly from our point of view, we lost our family home. That had to be sold. There was no life insurance because haemophiliacs couldn't get life insurance, and obviously when these diseases or these viruses were brought to light, insurance companies were panicking and they were added to, basically to their clauses of what they wouldn't pay out for. So HIV was one and hepatitis C was another. So it was impossible for these people to secure a future with life insurance so that their families would be looked after. And this is across the board. A lot of people have lost their homes and are struggling.
Tony, listen, really good to hear your voice this morning. I wish you all the best and thank you for coming on and sharing the story of your father and your uncles and your cousin as well. Tony Farrugia there, who has been involved in this inquiry and listening to what's been heard. Now, a woman from Norfolk says that she was given a death sentence when she was given tainted blood. Michelle Tolley is due to give evidence at the public inquiry into the contaminated blood scandal, which has been described as one of the biggest disasters in the history of the NHS. Around 3,000 patients have died after being given infected blood and diseases like HIV. Much of the tainted supply was imported from the US, where high-risk groups like prisoners were paid to give blood. Earlier, I spoke to Tony Farrugia. He lost his father and both of his uncles to hepatitis and HIV, and he's been in the hearing all week.
I mean, we've had several independent inquiry, and we've had a public inquiry in Scotland, and all the victims and the families felt that it was a whitewash. We'd hope that we would get justice from this, that we would get the truth, and that the victims, the people infected, and their families would be recompensed for their loss.
Let's speak now to Michelle Tolley from Sparham near Dereham, who's joined me on the programme several times to discuss this. Michelle, lovely to have you back on again. You're giving evidence next week. Having spoken to you for many years, having spoken to you privately and publicly, does this now feel that this is the platform that you've been calling for quite some time, that your voice now officially can be heard?
Yeah, good morning, Nick. Lovely to speak to you as always. Yes, I do believe so. I mean, literally, I've not been campaigning for as long as a lot of the others that have been 30 years plus, because I was only diagnosed 3.5 years ago. But I'm here in London now at the moment, and I've been at the inquiry each day so far. And there is a real sense of, from my point of view, a sense of people thinking and feeling that this is our time now with this. We have to get our answers. We have to find out what's happened. We have to find out why it's happened, and we have to make sure that it doesn't never, ever happen again.
Are you confident that you're hearing what you need to hear and that you are getting some answers?
I think so. I mean, I've got every faith in the infected blood inquiry team. So Brian Langstaff is a very, very nice gentleman. He's very passionate about our cause. The complete team at the inquiry are absolutely lovely. They look after us. They listen to us. If they need to call us back, they call us back. We're not left hanging. And I'm really happy with the progression of that so far. So I really hope that they will continue to follow that through to the end, to get and finally get our justice, find our answers. And if people are responsible, then they need to be prosecuted. I'm sorry. It's as simple as that.
I know firsthand how this has affected you. I've walked with you up and down stairs. I've sat with you. We have spoken at length about this. And you are remarkable in the dedication and in the energy that you have demonstrated about trying to get answers. For the many people who have not got that kind of energy, and also for those who are sadly no longer with us, who've been affected by this. So you should be loudly applauded. I know your passion. I know how genuine you are. How difficult will it be next week when you sit in that chair to give evidence? Because I imagine that this is going to be a wall of emotion that you're going to need to try and suppress to get your story out and to make sure you're heard.
At the moment, I feel quite relaxed about it, but of course, I think it might be a different kettle of fish come Tuesday morning, and then my evidence isn't until the late afternoon, so I've got all kind of morning and afternoon to kind of stew and think about it. But I've been here as a support role for the support group I run, which is Contaminated Whole Blood UK. We've supported 2 members this week, and so I've got a good feel for, I know how the system works. I know the team. I know the QC that's asking the question, so I already feel comfortable in that, sitting up front. I've spoken out front, before last year at the preliminary hearings. I gave an opening statement, and I think this is my opportunity to kind of really get the big word out there for us to, raise awareness. There's thousands walking out there, Nick, that still have hepatitis C. There's a simple prick test now in the UK. It's apparently been here since around 2015. It's a little simple prick test. It takes about 15 to 20 minutes for a diagnosis, and it costs £12. But there's no funding. Amazing.
In terms of where we go from here and what can be learnt off the back of this, and actually the key thing, what action will be taken off the back of this? What have you been told?
Well, the thing is, once obviously for the rest of this year, the witness evidences are going to be gathered. Then it will go on to next year, which I'm hoping that the different bodies will be called up to give their own evidence and excuses. And then it will be down to Sir Brian to, make his recommendations, at the tail end of it. But if it only brings anything else, it needs to bring closure for all of the community. I was lucky. I only had hepatitis C, which is chronic and been awful enough. But, our haemophiliac community have suffered from HIV, hepatitis B, C, D, and many other pathogens included. And, these people, all those people that have died, also for us that had the blood rather than the blood product, how many of us have died without being diagnosed? I mean, hey, it took them 28 years to find me. How many more me are walking around out there not knowing?
Michelle, great to have you on as always. Thank you so much for your time. You take care, and I wish you all the best and strength in London over the coming days. As you hear what can only be very difficult evidence. You take care. Thank you for coming on this morning. Michelle Tolley there.
Bye-bye.
Bye-bye. Michelle's from Sparham near Dereham.